Okay, that probably sucked as a thumbnail, but I'm trying. I tried it. So, hi, good morning, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and hopefully I won't get interrupted like the video I filmed last night, since it's early in the morning and I already ate my breakfast. Okay, so this might be a boring video for people I don't know, but I thought something a little different than my usual literary ramblings update. Although this is technically an update too, but it's an update on classics this year, and since I moved here to North Carolina, so I'm gonna probably be moving around the screen a little bit because, unfortunately, unlike Word, the Pages document program I can't really shrink it. Or, I mean, I could, but you can't see the whole, I need to see the whole thing, so there's gonna be a lot of moving around. I don't know if you guys can see me or if I disappear or something, but, so I'm first gonna tell you guys about my, I guess the statistics of classics so far this year, and since I moved here. Okay, let's see, I'm gonna have to do some moving around, like I said, minimize that. Okay, so now this is not counting. Now I'm gonna start with 2016 because that's when we came here towards the end of 2016. But unfortunately, I did not start Goodreads until we moved here, so I don't have, or at least I didn't start the Goodreads goal, the Goodreads challenge. So I don't have, even though I've read some classics in 2016, which I do remember. One of the only one I remember is that I know I read was during the summer. I read The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane, and I only remember that I think because that was at the time that was a very unusual choice for me. It was one of those things where I had the book because my sister had it and she gave it to me, so I read it just to try it out, and I do like it better than, I did like it better than The Things They Carried, which I read in college. I'm a little picky about war. If I read a war book, I'm getting into them a little bit more, but I like the ones that are more personal and don't necessarily aren't 100% on the battlefield. Like, I didn't, and if it's an actual story, like, my thing with The Things They Carried is I understand the message, and I think it's a beautiful novel. It's great and everything. No disrespect to, I don't remember who the author is, or those who love that book, but I couldn't get into it. I found it kind of boring. And I get the message. Just because you find a classic book boring does not mean that you don't get the message. I get that it's all about these soldiers who are trekking through, I want to say it was the Vietnam War, so I guess the Vietnam jungle. And they're talking about the things that they carry, not just the physical things that they carry when they're trekking through the jungle, but also the burdens that they carry, the metaphorical burdens. It's listing all of that. And I think there is technically a story. It's not just list, but and maybe it was because we studied in class, we read it for class, and that's part of the problem. But I'm also not going to spend the money to buy it just so I can see if I still like it. I mean, if I find it at the library, maybe I'll try it. Although I'm probably not. I'm going to wait until this pandemic is, like, under control before I start using the library again. Not that I'm afraid to, because I wear a mask and wash hands and stuff like that. But unfortunately, with my work schedule, it's kind of hard for me to borrow books from the library because the library is open 3 days a week and only open from 10 to 2. It's the same as the bookshop. So it's a little hard for me to navigate that. So I'm not going to use the library until, like, until, like, this pandemic is, like I said, under control and they feel safe enough to open the library and the bookshop every day again. At least except for Sundays. Sundays they never opened on Sundays because, Sunday's the day of rest. If you are, a Christian, if you're a Christian, Sunday is the day where you go to church and, And this community is, I think, one of those communities that is sorry, that was Larissa. I just sent her a message earlier this morning about, actually it's about a site, an audiobook site for kids. So, but anyway, so yeah, basically, long story short, I'm not going to be using the library, at least not for now. But when I do, I might, if I feel inspired, if they have the things they carry at the library, then I might get it. Just to see for sure. So, like I said, it's not that I don't get the message. I do. Like I said, it's about things that they metaphorical, emotional, and literal things that they carry while they're trekking through the jungle. So just because you don't like a classic, just because someone doesn't like classic, does not mean they don't get it. So Red Magic Urge, I read that one. I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And meaningful. But that's the only one I remember from 2016 for sure. So, but that was before I started doing the Goodreads challenge. That might have been before I even joined Goodreads. So I have, for 2016, 0 classics, even though that's probably not true. I probably read at least a few classics. As for 2017, I read 9 classics. And I've been trying to determine, I need to check something. I should have called this up too before I started filming. But I don't know if you guys can still see me or not, but I'm trying to remember when I did that British literature class. Because once I see when I read Beowulf, then I'll know that's when I did that class. And of course, the internet's being slow. Of course, the internet is being slow right now. Okay, here it is. So, go here, view the challenge. You still disappeared. I don't know if you guys can still see me when I make the screen disappear. It's slow moving. Okay, so move this again. Check. Okay, I should have called this up before, but I wasn't thinking about that. I'm just making sure I grab the books and stuff. Okay, let's see. Is this here, or was I just want to see where is? It's not here. Okay, so go back. It must be 2018 that I took that class. I thought it was 2017 that I took it, but maybe not. Yep. Oh, crap, wrong thing. I opened the wrong thing. Okay, so, sorry, I don't know how that works if I disappear for you guys, but I should have called up my Goodreads anyway just to check this out, but I was trying to check when I took the British literature class, like I said, and it turns out I took it in 2018, which means that it is a surprise that... Where's that? Okay. Crap, where's that? I lost it. Okay. It is a surprise. Okay. Dang it. Oh, I'm still not prepared for this. I thought I was, but... Okay, so, let's see. Graphs. Okay, so, it was... So, I was surprised because 2017 I read 9 books, 9 classics. And I read in 2018, I read 7, which is surprising because I figured that taking that British literature class will allow me to read more classics. Um, and so 2018 was the year I read Beowulf, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and Canterbury Tales, which as I've said a million times before, I resent that story. I wish we had not spent so much time on that because I didn't care about that one. I mean, sometimes the stories were somewhat amusing once I understood them, but I cared about Hamlet and Gulliver's Travel, which I ended up reading a year later in 2019. I read it for fun. I think I read that. I think I read it in 2019 just to see if I liked it, and I thought it was okay. I ended up not finishing it completely. I got mostly towards the end, but I still had probably 50 more pages to go. Maybe less than that. Just to look it up, because after a while I just kind of got, okay, I'm done with this. I just want to see what's going to happen. So I ended up, doing a SparkNotes, looking it up on SparkNotes to see what happens, getting a description of the rest of the plot. And it wasn't a bad book. It was kind of fun. It was amusing, and I might not, that might be a book I still might consider for my nephews and maybe my niece when she's old enough. She's only a baby still, so she can't really understand that kind of stuff yet. She can absorb it probably, but she won't remember it and will not comprehend it because she's a little baby. Her brain is her brain isn't as developed because she, like I said, she's a baby. Duh. So I think 2017 was the year I read Frankenstein. And again, I should have called up these documents, this Goodreads and stuff, but I wasn't thinking about it. But yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute. And then 2019 is when it really, my classic readings really shot up because I read 23 classics, including some short stories by Charles Dickens. Now, originally when I counted these, I counted the whole collection, omnibus collection, as the one book that I read, but really I did not read all the stories. I only read some of them. And I feel less guilty about that one that I kind of technically DNF'd it. Because they are short stories, so it's a collection of stories. So I read some of them and I finished some of them. So technically I read, I completed some stories in that collection. It's like a collection, though. You can count it as a, read. I can count it as a read. I just didn't read the whole thing. I didn't read all the stories. And it was one of these things where it just, I don't know, maybe because I'm so used to his novels, even his novellas, that it was kind of a disappointment. It's that's it. I felt like it was missing something, which makes me feel like I have a mixed opinion about short stories. Some short stories I like Fitzgerald's short stories, which I finally started reading this year. And I'll probably like the Sherlock Holmes mysteries. And, I think. And I also liked, and this is not a classic, but I liked the Stephen King's 14 Dark Tales and Everything's Eventual. I like those too, which that's technically not a classic, although I feel like Stephen King is kind of a classic author now. Would be kind of considered a classic author, classic horror now of today's society, but for the sake of this, I'm not counting him as a classic, but I'm counting him as a short story writer that I did like. But with Dickens, I think because I'm so used to his novels and novellas, it just was it felt like it was lacking, his short stories. Some of them were kind of interesting, kind of cute, but, so, I don't remember how many exactly I read, though. I would have to check the Goodreads, which I will do that in a minute. Okay, and then I'm counting this year. So far, I've read 34 classics this year. Now, obviously, there's 2 more months to go, and I'm sure I will read some classics in the next 2 months. I'm saying even though October's over, I'm not over yet. It's almost over. It's like a week to go. So I'm just saying 2 months. Like, as of right now, as the attempted thumbnail I tried to make, you saw that I was reading Bleak House by Dickens. And then I'm also reading Oliver Twist again, which I read in 2018 or 19. Again, I'll check Goodreads on that one. But I read the library copy, and as I said in my previous video, it was one of those situations where I was trying to rush reading it, and like we were in Florida, so, and my grandma was with us, so there was a lot of distractions. I had to share a room with my grandma. There's just so many distractions. And then top of that, halfway through the trip, Terry came to hang out with us for the rest of the trip. And so I was trying to get it done before she got here, and I don't know if I did, or I don't think I did, though. But I did finish it. I think I finished it on the way back from Florida. So there's just a lot of distractions, and I really couldn't, I couldn't really get into it, and really take it all in, but I do, and I don't think, I do believe my feelings about our title character will still be the same, but I feel like I will appreciate the story more now that I'm reading it when there's no distractions. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not on any vacations right now. it's just a regular day. And there's, I don't have, although this weekend the same grandma will be, and my uncle will be visiting us for a few days, just so that my uncle can, golf here at Pinehurst, because Pinehurst, if you're a golfer, you know that Pinehurst is a bit of one of those golf courses that if you go there, it's kind of a big deal if you golf here at Pinehurst, if you're a golfer. But, so, although, because she'll be our rooms are set, I don't have to share a room with her this time around while she's visiting, and then I'll get to do my own thing and stuff, and it's not like I'm at Disney World or on the, or any of the other theme parks here, so we don't have any theme parks here, although there is a theme park in, one of the other counties, I think, which I've never been to. Carowinds, I think, is here. But anyway, so basically, long story short, there won't be any distractions, even though that same grandma is coming to visit this, and then, starting tomorrow. And I'm definitely, I barely remember the story from last time, and that's also how I feel about A Tale of Two Cities as well. I read that, and that's even farther away when I last read that book. And I read that this month, a week ago, and there's so much that I did not read that I vaguely recall from last time, so, which is, as I said before, is why I think reading classics is a good idea. Rereading books, whether it's classics or a different book, it's something to consider. As I also said in that video, I get it if reading classics is not your thing. Rereading is not your thing. I keep saying reading classics, but rereading, if that's not your thing, that's fine. But I think it's something to consider, because there's so much that you might not have taken in last time. Just like rewatching, someone made the comparison of rewatching a movie or your favorite TV show. There's always something new that you missed last time when you first watched it, or when you watched it the 100 other times. There still might be some new things, and also you just want to relive it too. Okay, so I think that number will grow probably a little bit more. I don't know how much more. Who knows? Because I don't know what I'll finish this year. But right now it's at 34. So percentage-wise, that means, for not counting 2016, because that's 0. So 2017, that means 12%. I read 12% in 2017. 2018 was 10%. In 2019 was 32%. And of course, this year is the biggest, and it's 47%. I like these graphs, even though I'm not a big number person. In fact, I despise math. I'm one of those kids who did not like math. I noticed that you're either a math person or you're an English person, which is, I find that really that kind of funny how you're one or the other. I don't know about all the other classes. I guess maybe English. If you're an English person, you're more of a history. You're into history too, and then maybe if you're a math person, you like science more. Which I do not know for sure. But I'm just guessing here. But anyway, okay, let me call up Goodreads and look at the. Okay, so this is I'll go ahead and look at 2018 as far as classics go. So let's see. So that was the year I read 1984. I thought that was okay. I mean, I understand the point of it, why it was kind of dull at times, and why the characters were lackluster. I mean, there was a point to that. They were supposed to be like that because like they were being controlled by the government, and everything they viewed or experienced was monitored and controlled. And it kind of reminded me, like, The Circle by David Eggers kind of reminded me what 1984 was about, which is like government control and stuff like that. Only this time it was kind of like how today we have so many social networks that we use, and how Facebook and Twitter and whatever like is monitoring what gets our attention by seeing what we like and what we comment on. And I think The Circle was kind of a commentary on that, how we have to be careful on what it could potentially become. Like, it's basically all these. It's like if you took all the different social networks and combined them with Google, that's what The Circle was. But it was kind of creepy actually, and that made me more nervous rather than 1984, in all honesty. But that's probably also because it's a modern. It's kind of what's going on right now in a disturbing sort of way. In fact, my phone, basically now my phone and my iTouch, which I use as my iPod, will tell me how much percentage and how many hours I've been using those devices, which kind of reminds me of The Circle too. Okay, so 1984, and then I read Frankenstein, which I like to buy another copy of it, of Frankenstein. I really love that Frankenstein. I don't know why I was getting tongue-tied for a minute there, by Mary Shelley, which is great. And I think if you've seen the movie and you're interested, I think you should definitely read the original book, because a lot of times, I think a lot of the movie version, except for maybe the Kenneth Branagh one with Kenneth Branagh and Robert De Niro as the creature, might be a little closer to the book. Because, I mean, it's Kenneth Branagh, and I think he's one of those writers/directors who will try to stick to the material of if he's doing a film based on classic, then he's going to try, or just the book in general. I think he's an author that would probably try to stick as close to the original text as possible. Just like Christopher Lee was like that about Dracula. He wanted to stick close to the text. Although I don't think they did when he did. I think in some of his in the interviews, because I did watch some interviews to send to Terry, because he's her new favorite actor, Christopher Lee. And may he rest in peace. It's kind of sad that he's gone. But I definitely think you should read it, because it's so first of all, the creature is not called Frankenstein. It's just that he doesn't even give it a name. And also, the creature is just not this. The creature is also not just this brutish monster with bolts in his head. He's actually he gains a lot of intelligence, and he's very philosophical and very emotional creature. And you feel bad for him, and you also you feel bad for him, and then realize maybe he's not the monster. And maybe Victor Frankenstein is the actual monster in the story. And so it's definitely a little bit, there's so much more that people do not get from the pop culture movies. They kind of make it a lot, like, a little more funny and monster movie-esque. And there's also no Igor in the book. There's no actual Igor character. Like, it's Victor on his own. I think they just made it for the pop culture reference, for the going this mad scientist, a little crazy, I mean, a little creepy assistant. Like kind of a Renfield-esque character. That's, I feel like Igor was kind of like Renfield. Although the most recent movie with James McAvoy and Harry Potter kid, what is his name? Daniel Radcliffe. He doesn't seem like Renfield-esque, but it seems they both seem a little more normal in that version, but I haven't seen that version either. And I kind of was still interested in that version because I like the actors that are in it, and I would be curious to watch it, but I have not seen it yet because my parents aren't interested, and I don't like going to movies by myself. And plus, either way, they would still have to take me because I don't drive. But anyway, so I think you should check out the book. And the only problem is, if you're not used to the writing style of a lot of classics, especially like the Victorian classics, how they're a little more wordy, there's a lot more of that, of wordiness, especially in Victor's character. He likes to hear himself think and talk, and he's very, simplifying, to make it simple, whiny. He's a very whiny, self-pitying, woe is me kind of person. Like, he's a baby. He's just a big baby. So I can understand where he would be very unlikable. Okay, I also read, I can kind of see it, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. That's his name, Ray Bradbury. I was trying to think of his name. Because he's the same guy who wrote... Now I can't think of it. I was thinking about a book that he wrote. Oh, Something Wicked This May Come. About the creepy carnival. That was a reread because I read that like in either middle school or high school. I read that one the first time, and I really liked it. And the scene that kind of stayed with me was the burning the books. The idea of what kind of stayed with me about the books, about that novel, is the burning of the books. And I know that they used that kind of idea in Pleasantville, the movie Pleasantville, because they're trying to keep things pleasant. So it's like, and you have these two kids from our world going into this pleasant 1950s type world, and like and when they tell the people about the books that they read in our world, also in the pages originally were blank in this black and white 1950s TV show world, and then all of a sudden the two kids they remember the books, and then all of a sudden the words appear, so everyone freaks out, and all the adults and all the traditional people start freaking out, and they decide to burn the books because they can't have anyone to learn too much, be exposed to too much knowledge. It's bad. It takes away the pleasantness of their world. And so they burn the books. So I think that was kind of inspired from Fahrenheit 451, which was all about controlling people. So there were a lot of science fiction books about that. The idea of controlling people, and now we still have this kind of book, like I said, with The Circle by David Eggers. It's all about that, like using the social networks to control people. And so that whole idea of the burning the books, and how our main character was a fireman, and that's what he did. He didn't put out fires. He would use the fire to burn books in case someone got a hold of one. So it kind of stayed with me as someone who reads a lot, who loves reading. And I reread it, and I still like it. I still thought it was a really interesting story. I mean, it's not one that I'm going to go out and buy. I don't need a copy. I ended up donating my copy, or my copy, actually, I don't know, maybe I didn't. My copy might still be in my box that I have with a bunch of books that I'm keeping, along with 1984 is over there too. It does seem Goodreads that the To the Lighthouse is on here, although that's not the copy I had. But I ended up DNFing that book. I just I don't know how I feel. That's just like with short stories, stream of consciousness. My opinions on it varies because I liked Notes from the Underground, which I read either this year or earlier this year or last year. Notes from the Underground by Dostoevsky. I liked that one, although I need to reread it. But that's also stream of consciousness, I think. And I liked that one, but I did not like, and it could very well have been bad timing, but I'm also not going to go seeking out and buying the book. I have no desire to buy it. So that was a DNF. I know a lot of people love Virginia Woolf, but I don't know if I can get into her. Okay, so that one, it counts on Goodreads, but it's technically, I shouldn't really be counting it. Okay, so I read the next one was another George Orwell book, Animal Farm, and I definitely preferred that one over 1984. And which is kind of cool, and maybe this means it's an abridged version of 1984, but 1984 is not that long of a book, and I want to say, or not 19, Animal Farm. My copy of Animal Farm might be an abridged copy because it looks like a children's book, like a giant children's picture book, which I think is really cool. Because it's about talking animals. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a, like very clever that they have an edition that looks like a children's book because it's about talking animals. And that's normally a children's story, but it's not a children's story. It's because there's lots of blood and gore and political turmoil and stuff like that. It's a message about politics, about communists and the dangers of communism. And in particular, there's the history of the Russian Communist Party. So it's not a kid's book, but it looks like a kid's book, which I think is really snarky of them to do an edition like that. But but because it's a kid's book, the format is a kid's book. I'm wondering if it's an abridged, but I've seen copies of it. It's not that long of a book, so maybe it's not abridged. I don't know. And I want to say that it's one of the books that my sister has. I need to read it. Or I might be thinking about how I saw at the beach house we stayed at back in September, the first week of September, we stayed at a beach house. A COVID-friendly situation, we were cautious, but and that's like really only the quickest, easiest vacation for us to do because you can't really leave. You can't because of the whole COVID and everything. But I did see it at that. The owner of the beach house did have that one, so maybe I'm thinking about that one. But anyway, so I really liked Animal Farm. I liked the whole I liked the format / edition that I had because, like I said, it looks like a kid's book. I think that's really clever. But like I said, it's about communism, the Communist Party in Russia, and how that all came about. But they're using animals, and the pigs are the bad guys. The pigs are the, Stalin, and I can't remember the other guy's name, the other important politician's name. But it's like the rise of Stalin and the fall of Stalin. It was an interesting way to tell that whole story through, and it's a way to teach it without, being very obvious about it. Okay, and then after that one, okay, nothing. Okay, so then I read Beowulf, and I kind of liked it. I definitely want to read more epic poetry. But again, I think it really helped that we were reading in a class, and I think part of the problem with reading Paradise Lost is I'm not 100% comprehending it. So I'm hoping my dad still wants to read it when I'm done with it, because and there's only 12 books, so they're not separate. They're in one bind up of books, 12 poems. So I want to read them in November and then give it to my dad to read so that we can talk about it. I mean, I hope he's still interested in it. But I probably should finish it first and then ask him if he's still interested, because I need to talk to someone. And I don't know. I don't want to put all that pressure on on my friend Therese. And I don't know even if she's reading it now either. She might be waiting on me to let her know that I'm back to reading it, because I did tell her that I was kind of taking a step back from it and participating in Booktober, and it's not Victorian literature. But I'm having trouble comprehending it. Just like I probably would have trouble comprehending Beowulf. I mean, maybe I would understand Beowulf a little bit more than Paradise Lost. Maybe not though. I don't know. But it does help for both of them. I think it does help to have some context for in both cases. I read that one. That one in that's epic poetry. If you're interested in epic poetry and have not read it, it's entertaining, you know. And it's kind of fun, you know. And I could see, because he played Thor, I could see Chris Hemsworth playing Beowulf if they attempted another adaptation of it. I know that they did this weird computer generated thing, and I think Angelina Jolie played the mom of the monster, the first monster that they face. I think. I don't know. I never actually watched it. We watched a clip, but then everybody kept talking in my class. And then after that one, I read Sir Goblin and the Green Knight, and I liked that one too. I like the characters more in that one than in Beowulf. And the cover of the one we had to read looked like a horror, which kind of makes sense on some level, you know, because it's basically the knight. This knight dressed all in green shows up, and they're actually making a movie adaptation. I cannot wait to see. I definitely want to see that, even though this is not my all-time favorite classic. I still want to see it because I did like it, and I would be curious what they would do with a movie adaptation. But it's a really cool. The knight, it's this knight that's all dressed up in green and makes a challenge to Arthur and his knights, and is like, you must cut off my head, and then I can cut off yours in a year from now, essentially. So they cut off his head, and then the head continued to talk. So that kind of gives it a horror aspect. So the cover kind of fits, but it's although it's more but that one was interesting, and like I said, I like the characters, I think, a little bit more than Beowulf's characters. Beowulf's characters were very two-dimensional, I feel like. It's like there wasn't much depth to them. I mean, there could have been if it was explored more. But Sir Gawain I liked that one. And then Farewell to Arms was my first Hemingway. I don't like Hemingway's writing style. And I did not like the characters. And it wasn't just the case of, oh, they're unlikable, I don't like them. As in, it was more like the main female character was very annoying and irritating and very submissive. Granted, my aunt made a good point that, like, she recommended it to me because she likes Hemingway, and she also said that Hemingway reminded her a little bit of my dad, because the guy likes fishing and outdoor activities, and they look similar. So I decided to check him out, and I do want to give him another shot. But like I say, I don't like the writing style, and like I said, the main female character was a bit irritating. But as I was saying, my aunt made a good point that, well, considering the time period, that's, it makes sense that this woman was like this. But I wasn't like saying how dare they make this female character like this. I'm just saying I did not like her. I could not appreciate her character. She, frustrated me, and not in a good way. So I didn't read any classics for a while. I did read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein that year. And it's kind of a retelling of Frankenstein, but through the perspective of Elizabeth, who is Victor's I think she's his cousin in the original text. But in this version, she's a child that they adopt to be a companion for Victor. And she's very loyal to him, worships the guy. the point where she will, do anything to protect him. And she's absolutely terrified that if she doesn't protect him and isn't loyal to him, that they'll kick her out because she's an orphan. But now in the original text, I think she's just a character that's mentioned in passing, like she's the woman that Victor marries. But there's no, she doesn't play a big role in the story, while this kind of expands her role. And I did recently watch a video where someone was talking about reading this book, and they like how there's now a lot more books that do that kind of expand roles of minor characters in classics. Okay, so, and then I finished North and South, which I like. I love, it's kind of a Pride and Prejudice, but in the Industrial Revolution era, where you have a girl from the country. Her family's uprooted to the city of Milton because her father decides to quit the parish because he doesn't like the direction it's going in, and he decides to become, he decides to get a new job and become a teacher in the city of Milton. And her and her mom are having trouble adjusting to it. But she makes friends with some of the mill workers and kind of gets caught up in the war between the mill owners and the workers, who go on strike because they don't like how they're treated. And she forms an antagonistic relationship with one of the mill owners, John Thornton, who kind of is the one who, he's friends with her dad, and he gets their, he's the reason he gets them their new home and stuff like that. So, and like I said, it's kind of a Pride and Prejudice type thing, so I'm sure you kind of can guess where it goes between her and John Thornton. I like it better than Pride and Prejudice, but I am going to reread Pride and Prejudice. I got my own copy, because my first reading of Pride and Prejudice was my sister's copy. It was a bit of an older edition, literally older, not just, not a special edition, but an older one, where to the point where it was falling apart a little bit. So, but now I have my own copy. That's the Barnes and Noble. Let's see if I can grab it and show you guys. Yeah, this one. And then I found this at Books A Million last time I went. I don't know if you can tell, if you can read it, but Obstinate, Headstrong Girl. And I think that's a Pride and Prejudice quote. And I like that it says, displeasing people since 1813. Which I'm guessing that's referring to Austen herself. So I thought it would be perfect for when I'm reading this, which I'm going to save either until January or the spring. I don't know yet. But I like this color. I know, I like these Barnes & Noble. I still have a soft spot for these because I like how they're different colors. I don't know why, because it's not like there's anything really fancy about them, anything really pretty. It's just they're all different colors. But it kind of fits the aesthetic of the Barnes & Noble store a little bit, because that one's a little more. It has a little more classier look, more traditional look to the store itself, so it kind of fits it. So these covers are so interesting, and I was just thinking about how some classics, especially the mass markets and stuff, I noticed that for covers they use these paintings for the covers, and some of them will use the same painting for different books. And there was one incident where I was like, that painting does not fit what I've heard that book is about, and the character that the book is about, and the personality of that character. So I just thought that was kind of funny. But I think it's just to save money and stuff, and Okay, so like I said, I like North and South better than Pride and Prejudice, but I'm gonna reread Pride and Prejudice, hence why I showed that to you guys. Okay, after that one, alright, so the last classic was a DNF in 2018, and that was Pick the Portrait of a Lady. I don't know if I'll ever reread that one, but I did get rid of my copy of it. It got donated to the Roast Office Bookshop. I just couldn't get into it. Maybe my opinion would have changed if I had given it a chance, more of a chance, because I did read it. But I couldn't get into it. Okay, so let me just let me go back. Okay, the screen's gonna disappear again, I think. Okay, so next is, okay, let's go to 2017. No, wait, no. Okay. Dang it. Go away. Okay, 2017 was the year I read, which I got more into, was the year I got more into Agatha Christie. Okay, so the first classic I read was Sense and Sensibility, which I'm hoping to get vintage copies of her books, because I do have the Barnes & Noble leather-bound omnibus edition of all 7 of her stories, because it also includes Lady Susan, which is actually a novella, and it's epistolary, as in it's written letters and diaries. No, I actually think it's just written letters. I have not looked at it yet. Okay, so, but I read Sense and Sensibility. I did like it. It just, again, at that time, I was kind of not really getting into Austen as much. I was starting to like her a little bit more and appreciate her a little bit more, but I think it helped listening to Emma and Mansell Park earlier this year, that I am giving her another shot. Because everyone loves her. I mean, she's one of the favorites in class as far as classic authors. So, okay, so this was my first attempt of Jane Eyre, and I don't know why, but on Goodreads, I have Jane Eyre on here twice, and the same thing with Library of Souls, which is not a classic. I had finally finished that trilogy. Now the author Ransom Reagan has written another trilogy that's it's part of the world, but it's like a spin-off trilogy. And was my second Jane Eyre, and still loved it. My opinion did start to change. That's when my opinion started changing about Rochester, and then now it's officially formed that I don't like him as a male lead, but he is interesting to read about. But I don't think he's boyfriend material or husband material, for that matter. But I don't think that's the point. I think the point is that, that Jane loved him despite all of his faults, and the love story is beautiful, and, that she stayed loyal. And he also makes a very compelling main character either way. Okay, so let's see, go through these. Okay, so then I read my first, I think that this was my first Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express. I read it because I wanted to see the new movie with Kenneth Branagh. I liked it. And the movie's pretty good. And then after that, the next one I read, between that and all these non-classic books that I read, was the Murder at the Vicarage, which I liked. And I think that's the first Miss Marple. That's a Miss Marple mystery, while Murder on the Express is a Poirot mystery. There's, I think, like Agatha Christie, she has three series where there's a different detective in each in the series. Like, one, she has the Poirot series, which is this male Belgian detective who's kind of a Sherlock Holmes-esque character. And then you have Miss Marple, this dotty old lady who people often underestimate because she looks like a dotty old lady. And then you have a husband and wife team, and I've only read one of their books. Well, I think actually all of them I've only read one book from their series, because with mysteries, I'm not always in the mood for mysteries. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. So that was good. That was interesting. Treasure Island, I ended up DNFing that. I attempted to pursue it some more, but I ended up DNFing it. And I want to give it another shot, because this year I read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I didn't like it. I was a little disappointed, but I'm thinking maybe I should give Treasure Island another chance because of that, which might not, I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone out there, but I feel like if you don't like one of their works doesn't mean you're not gonna like all their work. And I feel like I didn't really give Treasure Island a chance. Like, I waited too long before I attempted to pick it up again. I don't even know if I ever really read it that year. I think it was just one of these things where I picked it up and attempted to read it, but then it was like, I'm just gonna DNF this. So I'm gonna give it another shot. I need to buy a different copy. I want to buy something other than Mass Market, though. Okay, and then the next Agatha Christie I read was Spider's Web. Although I think Spider's Web was under a different name when it first came out. Which is a standalone mystery, just like And Then There Were None. And I think there's one more that's a standalone that she wrote. I don't remember which one. I think there are like 3 at least that I know of. I thought Harry Potter one day would be one of those books that wanted to become a classic, but I don't know what's gonna. Because now J.K. Rowling won't keep her mouth shut. She's saying all these stupid bigots things on Twitter. And people will, if you say things on Twitter, if you share your opinion on there, that people are going to get mad at you, especially if your opinion is something that people don't like and find messed up, a messed up way of thinking, and is very bigoted, then so it might ruin Harry Potter chances of becoming a classic. Although H.P. Lovecraft is still a classic, and he was very racist. A racist person, although people aren't really drawing attention to it until now, I feel like. Like with stuff like series like Lovecraft Country. But I wish that the series wasn't being punished because of J.K. Rowling's stupidity. I do feel like, because I still feel like Harry Potter is still a good series. It's not great, and I don't know if there's stuff in there that may be little hints that show that J.K. Rowling, her true nature, the kind of person, her true way of thinking. Although I guess the whole fact that there's not a lot of, I think there are some things that probably are in the books that now people are thinking, well, that kind of explains a lot. But I still like the series. I still hold it in my heart. I grew up with it, and I'm not one of those people who can let it go just because of the author. But like I said, I bring it up because I always believed that it would become a classic someday, but it might not be. Although I have a friend that said she already considers it a classic. We were debating that. Let's see, Jurassic Park. I don't know if you consider Jurassic Park classic. Like a modern classic. But I liked it though. The science was hard for me to follow. I'm not a science person. So then I finally read The Bell Jar, and I thought it was okay. Again, another book that I probably should have reread. Should have kept it so I could reread it to see if my feelings are changed, but I never did because I just was like, yeah, it's okay. I'm glad I can say I read it. Basically about this woman going crazy. And that's being, in a simplified way. It's, I think it's a little biographical on some level, I think. And I don't mean to simplify it to disrespect the text. It's just, I love it, like a lot of people do. Okay, so I read Peter Pan for the second time, and so I'm a little conflicted. I was just telling my mom how I almost want a different copy of it. But I also feel a little nostalgia for it because it's a Borders edition. But I almost want a prettier copy of it. So I almost want to keep it and just get another copy. But because it's not that great. It's not a pretty edition. So yeah, I'm getting, just like everybody else, I'm thinking about the covers of books. But that's really good, and I think that's another one where you should read the book, the original classic, compare it to the original, all these adaptations, because it's a lot darker. I think not a lot darker, but a little darker. Like Pan himself is a little bit more sadistic and bratty, and that's putting it nicely. And then I reread Catcher in the Rye. I finally reread Catcher in the Rye that year. Didn't like it that much. Holden Caulfield's character kind of got on my nerves. I felt bad for him, but he still got on my nerves. And I think that's partly because I'm now 31 years old. Well, at the time, I was in my late 20s, like 29 probably when I read it. So it was like I couldn't, or 29 or 20, I don't know. But either way, late 20s, and I just did not like him. And I did like his relationship with his sister. But in that, he was just getting on my nerves. But I did feel bad for him. I think a lot of times, like, depending on the person, a lot of people, have a hard time getting into, getting into Holden Caulfield's character. Okay, A Separate Peace by the John Knowles. To me, that's definitely a campus novel. I think that, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Dead Poet Society without the poetry. And instead, it involves murder, then suicide. Or not murder, but an accident. Although it's debatable if the other kid pushed. It's debatable. It wasn't deliberate murder. But some people might look at it that way if they some of the. See, this is another book I have on here on this list twice. I don't know why it shows up twice. Okay, so no classics right now. There is a retelling of a classic called The Madman's Daughter, but I DNF'd it. It's referring to Dr. Moreau, the island of Dr. Moreau, and what if he had a daughter? Which I think there's another series that kind of takes that route with giving these characters children, the famous horror characters. Okay, and then I read another Agatha Christie, Postern of Fate, and I think that's the husband and wife. There's a book with the husband and wife team. Oh, and that's it. It's out of the classics anyway for 2017. Okay, so let's look at 2018. Okay, 2018, or 19, I mean. Okay, it's being slow. Okay, here it is. Okay, come on. Okay, there it goes. Okay, it's being slow. Come on, why is it not doing anything? I don't know why it's not doing anything. Okay, I do not know why it's not coming up. For some reason, it's not, the rest of 2019 is not coming up. Because I read 114 books. Oh, here it comes. Okay. I don't know why it's being, I think it might be because, last time we went to visit my grandma, my aunt, who's a teacher, was talking about how a lot of people are going back to school via using. Some of them are staying home to be and using the computers at home, so it's kind of slowing down the internet. So yeah, so it was last year that I read Gulliver's Travels. I finally got around to it. Fortunately, it's being slow, so I can't. It's not coming up. I don't know. I don't know why everything's being. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so there are a lot more showing. Okay. So nothing there. Okay, and then I read. It was the year I read Persuasion. Could not get into it. I didn't like it as much. I mean, a lot of people would say that Persuasion is her most mature novel as far as writing and stuff. I think the plot wasn't as interesting for me. You know, I mean, I would like to reread it again just to see if I still feel the same way. Because, I mean, the idea of it is really sweet, a second chance romance. That's a really sweet idea. But it was kind of boring for me. So I read Crime and Punishment. I read mostly Crime and Punishment in 2019, but I did start it in 2018, I think. I just loved it, and I definitely want to read more Dostoevsky. But that was really great. But Dostoevsky is an author that writes a lot and does a lot of philosophizing, and he's not for everybody, I don't think. But I really liked it. That was very intriguing and, compelling. The main character was compelling, and I attempted to read Joseph Conrad's Under Western Eyes, which was his answer to Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, thinking he could do it better, apparently. Or that's what people say in reviews. That was probably his thought process, and I didn't like it. I still prefer Crime and Punishment, and I want to reread Crime and Punishment. And I think it does not help that it's from a British person's eyes, rather than someone actually from Russia. And I couldn't get into it, and and then I did read reviews on Goodreads, and it just sounded like I wouldn't like it as much. So I got rid of it. It's in my donation pile. But I loved Crime and Punishment. I'm already thinking about rereading it, and normally it takes me a long time before I decide to reread a book. Okay, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I love that, although I did donate. It is my donation pile. It's a beautiful story about, this young girl growing up, this Jewish girl growing up in New York, in Brooklyn particularly. It's a coming of age story. It's really interesting and fun. And then after that, I Capture the Castle. I guess that would be counting as classic. It's the same author who wrote 101 Dalmatians, Dodie Smith. Another coming of age story. I liked it. I didn't love it. It was okay, I was kind of disappointed by the ending a little bit, I remember, but it's an interesting story. And for some reason I get I Capture the Castle mixed up with We Always Live in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. The titles are very similar, but they're not the same. They're similar. And so I do have a soft spot for stories about sisters, though, and that's one. Let's see. I don't know if you would count The Handmaid's Tale as a classic, but maybe like a classic now. Maybe it's a new classic. I feel like you have classics, you have modern classics, and then maybe you have the new classics. So I read that one. I wanted to read it because a lot of people love The Handmaid's Tale, and a lot of people watch the show and stuff. Glad I read it. It's not my favorite, but I'm still, I'm still glad I read it. I can say that I have. I'm not going to read the sequel, though. Okay, no classics there. None, nope. Nope. Oh, well, I guess To Build a Fire, Jack London. It's by an author who, That's a classic. It's a short story. This is the guy who wrote White Fang, the novel, not the movie, because it is a movie, yeah, and The Call of the Wild, which also became a movie recently with starring Harrison Ford. I have not read that one because I'm not big into nature in animal. I don't mind animal stories so much, but nature type stories I'm just not. Which is funny because I am an animal person. Um, that was when we listened to. I didn't physically read it myself. I listened to someone reading it to us because there was a thing at the library where they have adult story time where they read to adults. And this was one of the ones that I decided to go to it because I was already there. So I figured, what the heck, I'll stick around. So I read it, and I did like the narrator's voice and the writing style. That was also the year. That was also the meaning where they read the Faithful Elephants, which is about a zoo in like Japan or China, and how it's impacted by World War II. It's such a sad story for a kid's story. The artwork is beautiful. Oh, and then this was the year I read, and then there were none. I liked that one. I'm glad I read it. But I feel like with mysteries, once I read them, it's like, there's no point in keeping them because I know what happens. But some people, love mysteries and will keep them. But I'm not one of those people. I don't hate them, but I do like them. Okay, so I don't know if you would consider Amy Tan classic. I feel like you might consider her eventually a classic author. Okay. I DNF The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I was kind of disappointed because we still got the cartoon story, and yes, it's in there, but it's not as big of a part. Like, Esmeralda's a bigger part, I think, than Quasimodo does. But I was just kind of bored. I tried to buddy read this, and both myself and the guy I was buddy reading this with got bored with it. A retelling of Pride and Prejudice called Longbourn about from the servant's perspective. Then October came around, so we read a lot of October books. So one of the group read was the plays by Oscar Wilde, so we read The Woman in White and A Woman of No Importance. Or, not the, why did I say Woman in White? A Woman of No Importance and The Importance of Being Earnest. We read that, and I've seen both those. I saw the movie version. I've seen bits and pieces of the movie. And then that was, like I said, that was the year we read Oliver Twist. But, before I move on, I forgot to mention, I love Oscar Wilde's wittiness and his charm. And he's really funny, Then I also read Oliver Twist, and like I said, I feel like I kind of rushed that one, so I'm rereading that one. And here's okay, so this is The Importance of Being Earnest and A Woman of No Importance. Okay, so, and then I read Wuthering Heights for the first time, and I just loved it. And do not look at Wuthering Heights as a romance. It is not a romance. It's a tragedy, if anything. It's not a romance. I think that's the problem with it. I think that's why they feel personally, insulted by this book, because they're assuming it's a romance. It's not a romance. Don't go into it thinking it's a romance. That's part of the problem. I mean, it might. I think you should read it as a tragedy, as a revenge story, but do not read it as a romance. That's part of the problem with people. That's why people are like, why do people love this book? And the reason why they love it is because it's not a romance, and they don't hold the romance thing, but it's more just that they know it's not a romance. It's not meant to be a romance, but the characters are so compelling in their dysfunctionality. That's why they like people. There are people, I know that sometimes people don't get why you love unlikable characters, or why sometimes it's just these characters are too horrible, so it's like, why do you like, so they just can't even get past that, they're just dislikable characters, but I still like them. Or some people just can't get past if they're so bad. Like Rochester, or the characters in Wuthering Heights, like all the characters are most of the characters are unlikable. And that's what I kind of like about it. Because they're such horrible people. I think that's one of the people that do love that, but love Wuthering Heights, that's why they love it so much. Because these people are so horrible. And it's just so fascinating. It's like a train wreck. They just can't stop, and you have to stop and look at it, even though it doesn't have anything to do with you. And you could just avoid it and drive past it. It's like you just can't help it. It's how Wuthering Heights is. Like, you just can't help it. And I have the movie. Okay, so next is I read some Edith Wharton, which is not Victorian literature, technically. But I read it in October, I think. This might be after October. I might have read only 4 books in October. Which I guess that's a pattern with me then. Every October I only read 4 books. So Edith Wharton's, which one is this one? I can't tell which one it is. Okay, so it's not Summer. I can't tell what the title is. I don't want the screen to go away again. If I click on it, I can't tell which one it is. Okay, sorry, guys. Okay, this is Madame Tremaines. I read that one. I also read, oh, damn it, I did not mean to do that. I wasn't ready to do that. Okay, let me go back. Madame Tremaines, that's what that one is. Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. Oh, okay, so this is still October because I read Sleepy Hollow in October. Also, I read it to you guys, actually. So, if you watch that video, I read it because it's a short story. I also this year I also watched the movie version of it, the cartoon, and it was cute. It was fun, you know. You can tell it's old. It's an old cartoon. It's the one with that one and Mr. Toad. I did not realize. I thought that the stories were going to join together, but they're really just 2 separate stories on one thing, like one film strip or whatever. But I read Sleepy Hollow. I'm so used to the Johnny Depp Tim Burton movie that Sleepy Hollow, the actual book, which I think that's why I was cool with it and I kind of liked it, because I already knew that it wasn't going to be the same as the movie, the Tim Burton's Johnny Depp movie. It's not the same thing. Like, the characters are more compelling. There's more of a romance between Ichabod and Katrina in the movie. While in the book, I think she kind of just takes advantage of him. She doesn't really care about him. She thinks, she thinks he's nice and sweet and stuff, and he's kind of a douchebag. Like, he's kind of arrogant and cocky. Like, he's just as bad as as Abraham or Brom or whatever you want to call him. I also like the TV show. There was a TV show, Sleepy Hollow, that came out a few years ago. I think it ended up being canceled, but I did stop watching it, and Okay, so then I read Ethan Frome from Edith Wharton. I liked it better this time around. This is another reread. I read it in one of my college English classes. I like it better and I appreciate it more now, and I love Edith Wharton's writing style. So, I DNF Canary Row, which is by Steinbeck. I like the cover though. And then Great Expectations. That was a great book. I enjoyed that one. And I'm gonna reread it, and I wanted to get a regular size instead of a mass market paperback. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the cover, I just wanted a different size book instead of mass market, and I feel like with classics, I want to get some of my classics not in mass market. And I also love the cover. If you watch my video, I just filmed it yesterday, where it's kind of an update on Victober and just my reading in general, my literary ramblings number 20. I do show you guys my copy of Great Expectations, the new one I bought, which is really pretty. It looks like a painting on the cover, but it's not like, it looks like a watercolor, which I think is really pretty. And then Summer, I read Summer by Edith Wharton, and again, I really like that. And this one I read in one of those collections. It's like a bunch of classic authors have these kinds of books, where it's a collection of their novellas and short stories, and one big book. It's a big black hardback book. The cover's black, and then they have a kind of cursive S style with the author's name and what stories are in that one in the collection. And then I read Notes from the Underground, which was really great. I want to reread it though. I mean, I can't say it was really great, but I did like it. I want to reread it though. It's like I mentioned earlier with Stream of Consciousness, so I want to give it another. And then this was also when I got the Charles Dickens collection bind up of short stories, because it's the only one that I hadn't read that I have, or that I didn't have a copy of already at the library. So I read it. I read some of them, not all of them. I don't remember which ones I read though. And then it's like I read four of the short stories from that collection. And then Rebecca, I read that one. That's another one I want to get a different copy of the book. Either I'm hoping to get it for Christmas, or I'll buy it myself at some point. But that one I had a mass market copy of it, and I really liked it. It's a very popular book on BookTube now lately, especially now that there's even Netflix original movie version with starring Armie Hammer and I can't remember the actress's name. She's the one from Downton Abbey, and I think she's the same actress who played Cinderella in the live action. I can't remember her name. Who plays the main character, which is not the title character. The narrator. She's the narrator. Which I hope they don't give her a name in the movie, because then that would ruin it. I feel like if they give her a name, because it's the point. There's a point why she doesn't have a name. Okay, then no more. Canterbury Tales is on here, and I don't know why it's on here this year. Maybe Canterbury Tales. I could not stand Canterbury Tales. I wish we hadn't put so much focus on it. But some of the tales were kind of amusing once I understood them. But I will never like that book. Okay, and then like I said, I read Gulliver's Travels this year. That was kind of entertaining, and I think a kid's version would be fun for a kid, for a kid. So that might be one of the books I might give to my nephews. And then, okay, and that's it as far as classics goes. Okay, so I'm almost done. You know what I'm gonna do this time? I'm gonna do this instead of going on Goodreads. I'm looking on Goodreads. Ooh, I'm down to 56% on my computer. Instead of going to Goodreads, I'm gonna just call up the Pages document for this one. Okay, so as of 2020, I read. Okay, good. So the important thing, the thing I need to see is I can see it. Okay, in January I read Jude the Obscure. Didn't actually technically finish it, because it basically got to a point where I was like, okay, I knew Thomas Hardy can be depressing, is very depressing in his books, especially his endings, but this particular ending was just too much. And it looks like I kind of gave up on the whole putting the author's name. I got lazy about that. But yeah, the ending involved kids. Something happening to kids in Jude the Obscure. Because the rest of the book I really liked. It's just that last part. It's like, okay, I can't do this. Especially as someone who has, my sister has kids. 3 as of this year. So it was just I couldn't do it. It was just the idea of that, which maybe that's silly for some people, but for me it's just like, especially because they're so my niece and nephews are so young, they're toddlers. And then I read, which I don't think I put this in order because I'm pretty sure I read Oh Pioneers first. So Oh Pioneers by Willa Cather. But I decided not to read the other book which it's funny because Oh Pioneers in the book that my sister had that I'm going to give back to her and I'm not going to even read it. They're part of the same series. I did not realize that. But they're not in order. Like, Oh Pioneers is the first book, but I think the one that I had was, like, the third book or something. So, it's kind of funny. That was, like, an accident because I bought Oh Pioneers beforehand, before I even got to that one. But I feel like it's a series that you don't necessarily have to read the whole series. You could just read one book from it, which is what I'm doing. I thought it was kind of interesting. If you like pioneer stories and, farming stories and all that, and if you like, then you might like it. I didn't hate it. It was a quick read. It's just like it's not something that I loved. Okay, and then I DNF'd Pamela. Very moralist, very moral story, all about morals and staying pure and stuff. And basically, this servant gets harassed by her boss. I DNF'd it. I got 14%, and I lost interest in it. Okay, so February is the first year I finally started reading Trollope. I read The Warden. I liked it. It was fun. I know not everybody loves it. I enjoyed it. The first book, the Barsetshire series. Although people say you don't necessarily have to start with that one if you don't want to, but it kind of introduces the characters and I listened to. I listened to it because people will get mad if I say I read it, but I listened to The Fellowship of the Ring. I finally listened to it on audiobook, my first audiobook, because it was one of these things where I've been thinking about doing that because I couldn't. I had no desire to actually physically read the book. And then the woman Melissa, who works at the library, suggested I get Libby. So The Fellowship was the first book I got off Libby. And then, let's see, I didn't read. Oh, and Two Towers was the second classic I read in March. I got an audiobook, and then I read Return of the King. I got through all of them, surprisingly, in March. In the first 2 months. But I think because it was an audiobook, that helped. And then we are getting to March. Let's see, did I read any? Doesn't look like running classics. Oh, well, Tender's the Night I read in March. That was interesting. I didn't love it. I still preferred The Great Gatsby at that time. Okay, and this is where I kind of give up on authors, putting the authors' names. When I got to April. Let's see. Do I have any? Okay, so no classics in April. Then May, I decided to read my first novel by Edith Wharton, which was The Age of Innocence. I read that one. I love my edition of it. That was great. It's kind of a love triangle. If you don't love love triangles, that wasn't. But it was fun. It was beautiful. Glad I And then I read the Barchester Towers, the second book in the Barsetshire series. And that one I think is a lot of people's favorite in the series. And I really loved it. Definitely got into it. It's kind of a soap opera though, if you think about just these. But then maybe that's how Victorian novels kind of. You could argue that a lot of Victorian novels are kind of soap opera like. So after that, and then I listened to Mansfield Park. That was my next audiobook after quite a few others, non-classics. My next classic audio read, and that was really great. It's now that one along with Emma are my favorite Jane Austens so far. I don't know which one I prefer. I think I prefer Emma, but I feel like at the same time I kind of relate to Fanny a little bit more than I relate to Emma as far as their personalities go. Okay, so Mansfield Park was the last classic I read that year, that month. And then comes June, and surprisingly I didn't read a lot in June. There were only 4 books in June, and none of them were classics. Okay, and then comes July. And that was the year I read Jane Eyre. I read Jane Eyre in July. This is my first reading of my third reading of Jane Eyre, because I read it when I was 16, and I read it again a year or so ago, 2 years ago, and then I read it this year, this past summer, and I loved it just, even more so. And then I read a classic that was not as well known, I feel like, and that is an underrated classic, and that's The Magnificent Ambersons by Booth Tarkington. And actually, I think in one of Fitzgerald's short stories, someone mentions The Magnificent Ambersons. I think. That was really good. It was kind of a transition. This like a story about transitioning into modern times, and how our main character struggles with dealing with that, and he's so used to the way things are and wants to keep it that way. And he's kind of feels very entitled, and he's a bit arrogant, and it was really good. It was very entertaining. I mean, very good. A very good story. Okay, and then next was David Copperfield and Emma. I listened to Emma on audiobook. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, this one along with Mansfield Park are some of my favorites. Then I read David Copperfield. It might have been one that I already started, and I finished it this month in July. A great story, a coming of age story. I think I like it a little bit more than Great Expectations, which I'm gonna reread both of them either way. I'm gonna reread Great Expectations first, and then reread David Copperfield. I'm rereading them in order that I read them the first time. And that was so great. That one was so great. I know there are people that complain. Like, I remember Kate Howe was reading 1-star reviews of both that one and Great Expectations, and they were very amusing. So I didn't read a lot in July. I read a little bit more in July than June, it looks like. It's just books in general. And in August, I read quite a bit, and that's partly because I read a lot of short stories in August. Okay, so I read My Cousin Rachel in August. That was great. I still prefer Rebecca over My Cousin Rachel. I read the play A Doll's House, so that's another reason why, because A Doll's House is a play, so it's a little shorter than a novel. I need to reread that. And then the short stories. Okay, so I read the short stories of F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I read Head and Shoulders. It was okay. Bernice Bobs Her Hair. I really liked that one. That's, I think, relatable today. In fact, a lot of people can relate to it today. That pressure, the peer pressure of trying to be popular, and and doing whatever it takes for that popular to make yourself popular. I think that one's one of the ones that a lot of people can relate to still today. The Ice Palace, that was kind of interesting, like looking at the difference between the South and the North. Offshore Pirate, that one was kind of fun. And then Mayday was kind of about the war and stuff, and a lot of different characters and their stories in that one. That one could be turned into at least a novella, I think, if he had wanted to. And then Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger. I don't know why I thought I would like this a little bit more. I would like this more than Catcher in the Rye, but I was thinking, going by the title, that it was going to be completely different than it was. The characters were just as pretentious and as annoying as Holden Caulfield, and I just could not stand it. Could not stand those two. I felt bad for them at times, especially Franny. But I couldn't get it. I just did not like it. And then The Curious Case of Benjamin Button was another from that collection by Fear. I still prefer the movie over the book, the short story. But the short story was kind of amusing. It was a bit of satire. And then The Diamond as Big as Rich was really interesting. I liked that one. That was interesting. And then we're almost caught up. Just one more month to go, and then we're in the present month. So September was two more short stories from that collection, and that was Winter Dreams and Dice, Brass Knuckles, and Guitar. That one kind of deals with racism and classism. Winter Dreams is kind of a sequel, I think, to The Ice Palace. I think that's the sequel to it. And then not a classic. Rip Van Winkle was Washington Ivory, one of his more famous short stories. Next to Sleepy Hollow. I'm glad I read it. I didn't love it, but I kind of liked it. It was interesting. I read This Side of Paradise in September. That's the next Fitzgerald, and that was his first. I think that was his first novel. And it was another one that was kind of interesting. Like, when I say something's interesting, it's more like I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. But so like it was just okay. It was, like, I don't regret reading it, but it's not something I'm desperate to read again. And then when I read, I don't know if I'm gonna keep that one when I read The Last Tycoon, which is his last novel that he never finished. Like, it's basically his first and his last novel, which I thought was that's kind of cool to have that, so I'm hesitant to get rid of it. And the last book I read in September was not a classic, so I'm done with the classic. And then we're finally caught up to October. We're finally here in October for Victober. And like I said, I read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I was kind of disappointed by it, but I'm going to read the rest of the other stories in that collection. Like, The Bottle Imp sounds kind of interesting, kind of fun. That involves a genie. The Picture of Dorian Gray was a reread. I love A Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm glad I reread it. I definitely appreciate it a lot more now and find it so fascinating. I think Colin Firth likes Oscar Wilde because he did that one, and then he did A Woman of No Importance. The Importance of Being Earnest. He did that one. So I think he might be a fan of Oscar Wilde a little bit. And then I read Silas Marner, which that was really interesting. That was a cute, very endearing story. It was a short story by George Eliot. Not short story, but a novella by George Eliot. And then I reread A Tale of Two Cities, and again, another situation where I definitely appreciate it more now. My feelings are still the same, which are positive because last time I loved it, but I love it maybe just a little bit more. But I still feel like the characters are a bit of a letdown. Most of the characters, not all the characters. There's a few characters like Cindy Carton who are still just so intriguing and compelling. Um, and then I just finished The Haunting of Hill House, which is like the haunted house story, the original haunted house story, which was really good. I also like Strip Cover Lit. I think that's what their channel name is. They did a very literary-esque review of The Haunting of Hill House, where they really dived deep and discussed the book, and even like kind of read to us quotes and stuff. It was a really good review, very thorough review. But I'm too lazy to do that, to dive really that deep, even though I want to. And I'm currently I'm doing my reread of Oliver Twist right now. So I'm doing a lot of rereads this year. A lot of them are classics. And Oliver Twist is like, it reads like a fairy tale almost. And it's one of his quirkier novels, I feel like. I mean, I haven't read all of Dickens' work. I'm still working my way through his library, but, and actually, the original idea for this video was I was going to update you guys on Dickens, but I decided to just update you guys on classics. Okay, so I'm almost done with this video, and, I just want to talk about the classics that I've bought now some of these might be ones I bought last year, but Anna Karenina I bought a vintage edition off of Thrift Books, and I'm really glad because these Penguin English Library and these vintage editions, they go really quickly. You know, a lot of people will, because they're so pretty, a lot of people love them, so a lot of people will buy them, and I'm trying not to buy too many books in the next, I'm trying to like take a bit of a break on buying books because I bought a lot of books these past couple months. Now that I've signed up for Thrift Books, but I bought this one. Now it's not in the most pristine condition because there's this, and this might have been from traveling, but this was an hour and a half of Thrift Books, and despite that, it's still in great condition, and it's a used bookstore. And I think my mom is gonna do like give me a stamp or something to put here, so I can put on all my books, or like all my favorite books. But yeah, I started War and Peace, but I've not continued it lately. But I loved it, and I love the French flaps. This is so beautiful, and I did put on my Amazon wish list the vintage classics editions of Emma and Mansfield Park as well. So, yeah, I love it. And so, but yeah, those editions will go really quickly on Amazon, on Thrift Books. Let me go ahead and show you. This is the vintage edition of A Christmas Carol. This doesn't have the color pages. It's a little disappointed, but the vintage classics of A Christmas Carol is really pretty. And I just realized last night that these are images of the characters, particularly all the characters in the new Christmas Carol. So, I'm going to read that this year in this edition. And I think when the boys are a little bit older, I would love for my dad and I to read it together and kind of act it out a little bit, because especially since he did the play one time and he was the ghost of Christmas Present. So I want to collect more of these because I love these. I have like a lot of favorites, types of editions, and then, which actually I totally forgot that's the second one I have on here. And then another one I bought was Dracula. I bought Dracula this year. I rebought and rereading it as we speak. I love these, and this is the same edition I have of Age of Innocence, which is, it's a purple. Age of Innocence is lavender color, I think, or periwinkle. But I like these with the quotes, and then I don't know why, but I kind of like the feel. Even though it's kind of rough, the feel of the covers. And then I bought Lady Anna, which was a regular paperback. It's not anything really special or anything. And then, like I said, I bought Great Expectations. Some of these, like I said, I have right here, so some of them I can show it to you guys. Great Expectations. See, this is what I mean. Like, it looks like a watercolor. And George Bernard Shaw does the introduction, which I think is really cool. He's the guy who wrote Pygmalion. I want to say did he write? It doesn't say it on here, but I want to say he wrote The Elephant Man too. It looks like a watercolor. And then let's see, Oliver Twist. Do I have that one? That one might be over there. I'm not gonna, because this video is already long enough, but I have Oliver Twist. And then I bought that, and I bought Tale of Two Cities. And then Of Mice and Men. I bought this because I have the Barnes & Noble Other Round bind up, but I decided I want to get an easier one to read so I can take it with me when we go traveling, like to visit family and stuff. Like, it'll be easier. This is the Centennial Edition, so it matches my copy of Grapes of Wrath. It matches my copy of Grapes of Wrath. It's the same kind of edition. Which I was thinking Grapes of Wrath was the one with the white color, but no, I think it's East of Eden's the one that's kind of whitish color. It's the same style though. But my copy, I already have East of Eden in the Penguin edition, so I'm not gonna buy it. I didn't want to buy it. Pride and Prejudice, I already showed that one to you guys. The Idiot, Mass Market. I'm not gonna get that one out because the way I have my books set up on my shelf, I can't, like, if you guys can see it, see right there, down, right here. See how that's stacked? So I'm not gonna bother grabbing it to show you guys. And then Les Mis, I have that one. That's another reread I'm gonna do because, in my original copy of it, I did not realize it was an abridged copy of it, so that's why I did not realize how long it really was at the time. So I'm rereading it. I definitely like Better Brothers Karamazov. Also is the Mass Market, and I'm not going to show it to you. The Awakening, other short stories. I think that one I can show you. This is the Modern Library edition, and I think this is the same edition as the Oliver Twist I got. The Modern Library one. I love it. This cover is so pretty. Of this woman, and I think I remember reading, or someone I know read The Awakening. But yeah, so I'm gonna reread this one soon. I'm gonna read this one soon. I don't know when, but I will at some point. And then The Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm not gonna get that one. Silas Marner, that is in the Arcturus editions, which is those brightly colored covers. It has kind of a drawing on it, like this one. Far from the Madding Crowd. I think I bought this one this year as well. It's kind of like that. It's kind of similar cover to this one. Which I love these covers, and like I said, the brightness kind of makes me feel like, oh, it's so dramatic, and also makes it more fun. Makes them more fun. I think that's a lot of times I think because people like pretty covers because it makes the books more fun and more fun to read, especially if the plot's kind of gloomy or if you like. I think, well, it might still not be enough in school, but for students, but I feel like they should read more fun versions of it. But anyway, Inferno, Inferno was also in that kind of edition, in Paradise Lost is in the Penguin edition, but with the paintings, the black ones, not black. Those the original kind of like the second edition, I think, of Penguin, the second series, Penguin series, and it has the whole Garden of Eden with the naked woman, getting eaten the fruit. Because at the time when Adam and Eve, they were naked and they weren't aware of it until they ate the fruit. It's part of the story of Adam and Eve, if you're not familiar. And then I got hard times. And about this one, I ordered this one, but it actually, the Penguin English Library editions, which I love, because I love the pictures on the cover that are like a symbol from the story. And this one, it's horses. I don't know what horses have to do with it, but I will find out. But this is a library copy. It's at the Hamilton Library. I'm thinking New York. But I just like these covers. I don't care if it's if it looks messy. It doesn't need to be new. I'm just buying them for the cover. And then, as long as it's still readable. Okay, and then, so, there's that one. And then, The Haunting of Hill House is the Penguin editions. And then, Lord of Doom is mass market. So, it's one of those ones that has, like, the cover. And then the Modern Library, I have letters from John and Abigail Adams, which is if you're not American, you don't know your American history, he's our second president. And then Wilkie Collins is The Moonstone. I have that one in mass market as well. And then Wives and Daughters is the Barnes & Noble Classics, which is it's pink. It's really pretty. Now, I don't know if that's all the books I bought this past couple years, but that's kind of an update on classics, what I've read so far, as far as my classics go, and I'm gonna read more. And I kind of next year I want to focus on reading not just tomes, but also like both tomes and classics. That's gonna be a big focus next year. Unfortunately, not all modern books are tome size, which is not unfortunate. It's fortunate, but it means I will be tempted to read non-tomes as well. And I'm gonna, like I said, my focus is I want to read a lot of tomes and classics. So I hope this video wasn't too boring. It was somewhat mildly interesting. I mean, surprisingly, I think there are people that do like these statistics type videos where people share their statistics. Like, there are people that like, I think, I can't remember her, but there are some booktubers who I think they will do these kinds of, when they do updates, their updates will start with their statistics. I cannot say that word. And they, point out that it seems like people like that. So, I hope, like I said, I hope you guys like it and weren't bored by this video, but I thought it would be something different, a different kind of update video. And if you did like it and weren't bored, then give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification below if you want to know when I post new videos. I hope you are staying safe, washing your hands, wearing your face mask. And I hope you are still continue to be kind to people, to everybody. And I hope you are enjoying your reading. All right, bye.